What if the reason Kanye West's music still divides the world isn't just about the music itself, but about who is missing behind the scenes? Because when you look closely, there's a pattern most people keep ignoring, and it might explain everything you've been hearing lately. Welcome back, everybody. Before we get into today's discussion, make sure you like the video and subscribe. Let's try to hit that 1,000 likes goal. Now, straight into it. There's been a lot of discussion recently about the possibility of Mike Dean reconnecting with Kanye West, and I want to be very clear from the start. I'm speaking strictly from a creative and musical standpoint here, not personal rumors, not private history, and not anything outside of the music itself. Because when you look at their collaboration through a factual lens, it wasn't just casual teamwork. It was a long-running, high-impact creative partnership that helped define an era of modern hip-hop and pop production. Mike Dean is widely credited as a key contributor across multiple Kanye West projects, particularly from the mid-2000s through the 2010s. His work is heavily associated with landmark albums such as The College Dropout, Late Registration, Graduation, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and Yeezus. These projects are not just fan favorites, they are also critically acclaimed, with multiple of them consistently ranked in greatest albums of all time lists by major publications like Rolling Stone, Pitchfork, and Billboard over the years. From a production standpoint, Mike Dean's influence is especially noticeable in the synth work, mixing clarity, and atmospheric layering that became more pronounced during Kanye's peak experimental phase. For example, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is often cited in music criticism circles for its dense, multi-layered production style, with dozens of contributing musicians and producers blended into a cohesive sound. That level of sonic complexity is part of what made the album widely regarded as one of the greatest albums of the 21st century. Similarly, during the Yeezus era, the production shifted dramatically toward minimalism and industrial sound design. That project, which was released in 2013, is frequently discussed in music analysis for its stripped-down structure, distorted synths, and aggressive sonic palette. Mike Dean's engineering and finishing work played a significant role in shaping that raw but intentional sound direction. Now, when people talk about a possible reunion, it's not just emotional speculation. It's based on observable changes in production style over time. In more recent Kanye releases, listeners and critics have frequently pointed out a shift in mixing depth, vocal processing, and overall polish compared to earlier eras. While modern digital production tools have evolved significantly, the fullness and dynamic range associated with earlier collaborations is something fans often reference as missing. This is where the conversation becomes more analytical than emotional. It's not simply about whether the music is good or bad, but about structural differences in production teams, engineering workflows, and collaborative density. Historically, Kanye's most acclaimed albums have involved large, tightly coordinated creative teams, often including multiple co-producers, engineers, writers, and sound designers working in highly iterative studio environments. When you compare that to more recent, more streamlined or independent workflows, you start to see why listeners perceive a difference in sonic texture. It's not subjective nostalgia alone. It's also about measurable differences in layering, mixing complexity, and collaborative scale. So when fans bring up Mike Dean potentially returning to Kanye's creative circle, it's rooted in a pattern we can actually trace through music history. Some of Kanye's most sonically complex and critically successful work coincides with periods where Mike Dean played a central technical and creative role. That's why this conversation keeps coming back. It's not just about personalities. It's about a documented creative system that, at its peak, produced some of the most influential music of the last 2 decades. The same observation can also be made when you look at Drake and his longtime collaborator Noah "40 Shebib. From a purely creative and production standpoint, Their partnership has played a defining role in shaping the sound that propelled Drake into global dominance. To put it into perspective, 40 is widely recognized as the architect behind Drake's signature atmospheric sound, characterized by ambient textures, slowed-down sample work, minimalist drum patterns, and a heavy emotional tone. This sonic identity first became clearly established on Drake's early breakout projects, particularly So Far Gone, 2009, which marked the turning point that transformed Drake from a rising rapper into a global music force. From there, the collaboration continued to evolve. Across major releases like Thank Me Later, Take Care, Nothing Was the Same, and Views. These albums weren't just commercially successful, they were also historically significant in terms of streaming performance and cultural impact. For example, Take Care is frequently cited by critics and fans as one of Drake's most influential works, often praised for its cohesive mood and emotional depth, much of which is attributed to 40's production style and mixing philosophy. In fact, industry analysis of Drake's catalog often highlights a clear pattern. The more centralized the creative direction with 40 deeply involved, the more cohesive and atmospheric the final sound tends to be. His production approach is built around space and restraint, using silence, reverb, and low-end emphasis to create emotional weight rather than dense instrumentation. When fans talk about the idea of Drake and 40 potentially reconnecting more deeply in a creative sense, it's often rooted in this historical consistency. Over time, as Drake's sound expanded to include a wider range of producers and global influences, the sonic identity became more diverse, but also, according to some listeners and critics, less uniform compared to his earlier, more tightly curated albums. This is where the argument for reunion becomes more analytical than emotional. It's not necessarily about recreating the past, but about recognizing that some of Drake's most critically acclaimed and culturally defining work came from a highly focused collaboration model between artist and primary producer. So when people suggest that reconnecting with foundational collaborators like 40 or Mike Dean could elevate the music again, they are essentially pointing to a documented creative pattern in modern music history, where deep, long-term producer-artist chemistry has repeatedly resulted in some of the most influential albums of their time. Now shifting focus, Kanye West and Bianca Censori once again found themselves at the center of global attention following their appearance at the Grammy Awards. The moment they stepped onto the red carpet, the atmosphere shifted instantly, turning what is usually a controlled celebrity showcase into an immediate media storm. Bianca Censori's outfit, a sheer, highly revealing design, became the focal point of the entire event within seconds. Almost every major entertainment outlet, from live broadcast coverage to digital media platforms, redirected attention toward the couple. In today's media landscape, where real-time engagement drives visibility, such moments can generate millions of impressions within minutes across platforms like X, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The reaction was immediate and global. Photographers on the red carpet continued capturing images non-stop, while clips of the appearance circulated online at extraordinary speed, often reaching viral status within the first hour of posting. Entertainment commentators, fashion analysts, and cultural critics quickly began weighing in, debating whether the look was a bold artistic statement, a publicity-driven moment, or a violation of traditional red carpet norms. Within a very short time frame, the discussion expanded beyond fashion into broader conversations about celebrity influence, media ethics, and the evolving boundaries of public appearance at major award shows. As with many high-profile Kanye West-related moments, the incident did not remain isolated to entertainment news. It quickly became a wider cultural talking point, dominating trending lists and sparking millions of user-generated reactions across social media platforms. In effect, what might have been just a brief red carpet entrance instead transformed into one of the most widely discussed moments of the night, illustrating how quickly modern celebrity culture can amplify a single visual moment into a global headline event. Following the appearance, a wave of rumors quickly began circulating online, suggesting that the situation may have escalated once the couple moved away from the red carpet area. Across social media platforms and entertainment forums, unverified claims started to emerge alleging that security may have intervened backstage, and that Kanye West and Bianca Censori were possibly escorted out due to the controversy surrounding the outfit and the immediate public reaction. At the same time, other speculative narratives began to surface, including suggestions of potential legal concerns linked to indecent exposure laws or dress code violations. However, it's important to note that in fast-moving celebrity news cycles, especially involving high-profile figures like Kanye West, early reports are often fragmented, contradictory, or based on second-hand interpretations rather than confirmed statements from official sources. As of now, no consistently verified evidence has been publicly established to confirm many of these circulating claims, which highlights a common pattern in modern entertainment cover age, where viral moments often generate a rapid expansion of speculation before factual clarity is fully available. In situations like this, the gap between what is seen on camera and what actually happens behind the scenes can easily be filled by online interpretation and exaggeration. What remains undeniable, however, is the scale of the reaction. Regardless of what occurred backstage, the appearance alone was enough to trigger widespread controversy across media outlets, fashion commentary circles, and social platforms. The discussion quickly moved beyond a single event and became part of a larger conversation about artistic expression, public decency standards, and the evolving expectations placed on celebrities at globally televised events. Despite the wave of backlash that followed, Kanye West and Bianca Censori did not appear to distance themselves from the moment or issue any immediate attempt to soften the narrative. Instead, they leaned further into the attention by sharing images of the appearance across social media platforms, effectively reclaiming control of how the moment was being presented to the public. In today's digital landscape, that kind of move carries significant weight. Once a moment reaches viral scale, especially one involving a globally recognized figure like Kanye West, the way it is framed online can shape public perception far beyond the original event itself. By reposting and amplifying the imagery themselves, the couple shifted the conversation away from purely media-driven interpretation and toward a more self-directed narrative. This decision immediately intensified the ongoing debate. Supporters interpreted it as a deliberate act of confidence and creative freedom, viewing it as a rejection of conventional expectations around red carpet behavior and public presentation. In their view, it aligned with Kanye's long-standing approach to challenging cultural norms and pushing artistic boundaries, even when it generates controversy. On the other hand, critics argued that the move was intentionally provocative and designed to maximize attention, regardless of public reaction. From this perspective, the reposting was seen not as passive acceptance, but as active amplification of controversy at a moment when public sensitivity was already heightened. As a result, the discussion expanded even further, moving beyond the initial appearance itself and into a broader debate about intent, image control, and the role of celebrities in shaping viral culture. From there, the conversation naturally shifted back toward Kanye West's music, where his recent body of work has continued to spark divided reactions among both fans and critics. On one hand, there are listeners who still point to moments of clear creative brilliance, sections of production where his signature vision, experimental instincts, and bold sonic ideas are immediately recognizable. Even in his more recent output, there are still flashes of that same innovative spark that once defined entire eras of modern hip-hop and reshaped mainstream production standards. On the other hand, a growing number of critics and longtime listeners argue that while the ideas remain ambitious, something feels less consistent in the final execution. The discussion often centers around structure, mixing balance, and overall cohesion, areas where earlier projects were widely regarded as highly refined and carefully assembled from top to bottom. A recurring theme in these conversations is the noticeable shift in collaborative dynamics over time. Historically, Kanye's most critically acclaimed and culturally influential projects were built through deeply integrated creative teams, involving longtime collaborators who contributed heavily to engineering, sound design, and final polish. As some of those key creative relationships have changed or become less central, listeners often point to differences in sonic consistency and finishing detail. This is why debates around his recent music tend to extend beyond just individual tracks or albums. Instead, they evolve into broader discussions about creative ecosystems. How much of an artist's signature sound is shaped not just by vision, but by the long-standing collaborators who help translate that vision into its most complete form. When you listen closely, Kanye West's creative identity is still undeniably present. The core elements that have always defined his artistry, the bold vision, the willingness to take risks, and his instinct for large-scale cinematic sound design, continue to shine through in various moments of his recent work. There are still passages where the production feels expansive and intentionally crafted, carrying that same ambition that once pushed mainstream hip-hop into entirely new sonic territory. However, alongside those strengths, many listeners and critics argue that the final layer of refinement that once made his records feel meticulously complete is not as consistently present as it was during his peak creative years. In earlier eras, particularly during his most critically acclaimed albums, there was a strong sense of precision in how each element was balanced. Every drum, vocal layer, sample, and synth line felt carefully placed within a tightly controlled sonic framework. In comparison, more recent discussions often highlight variations in mixing balance and structural cohesion. Some listeners point to moments where the layering feels denser but less clearly separated, or where vocal treatment and clarity don't sit with the same level of polish that defined his
Holy shit, made it.
The result, for some, is a sound that still carries powerful ideas, but doesn't always resolve them with the same level of technical sharpness or finishing detail. That contrast is what fuels much of the ongoing conversation around his music today. It's not a question of whether the creativity is still there. It clearly is, but rather how consistently that creativity is being translated into a fully refined final product that matches the standards set during his most influential period. First impressions of any project are often heavily influenced not just by the music itself, but by the context in which it is heard. Timing, environment, and attention level all play a major role in how the sound is processed on a first listen. In many cases, especially with dense or highly layered productions, a casual or unplanned listening experience can make it difficult for the full structure of the work to immediately reveal itself. For some listeners, the initial encounter with the project may have happened in a late-night setting or during a distracted moment, where the focus wasn't fully centered on absorbing every detail. In that kind of environment, the music can feel overwhelming at first, packed with ideas, rapid shifts in tone, and layered production choices that don't immediately settle into a clear narrative. As a result, early reactions often involve skipping through tracks, trying to quickly grasp the overall direction, rather than engaging deeply with each individual moment. However, with a more intentional and focused second listen, the perception often begins to change. When the listener is more attentive and the environment is controlled, previously missed details start to emerge more clearly. Subtle production elements, background textures, and structural decisions that were initially overlooked begin to stand out, offering a more complete understanding of the project's creative intent and sonic design. On closer inspection, the production reveals a strong foundation of ambitious ideas that become more apparent with attentive listening. There are clear moments where the scale of the sound design feels intentionally massive, almost cinematic in its approach, with arrangements that seem built to fill large spaces rather than remain confined to a traditional studio listening experience. In several sections, the production carries a stadium-ready quality, wide, expansive, and engineered to create impact on a large physical or live stage environment. This kind of sonic architecture often prioritizes energy, atmosphere, and crowd response over subtle detail or minimalism, which helps explain why certain repetitive patterns or raw, unpolished edges have been noted by listeners. Rather than feeling like a purely intimate or headphone-focused project, the music often gives the impression of being designed with performance in mind. The structure, dynamics, and layering choices suggest a focus on how the sound translates in a live setting, where scale and momentum matter just as much as precision. In that sense, the production feels like it exists in a dual space, built not only for playback, but also for impact, movement, and audience immersion on a much larger stage. At the same time, there is still an ongoing debate surrounding the execution of the project. While the underlying ideas and creative direction are widely acknowledged as strong and forward-thinking, some listeners feel that the level of refinement does not always match the ambition behind them. In certain moments, tracks come across less like fully finished, polished records and more like early-stage concepts, almost skeletal versions of something larger that is still in development. This perception has led to the idea that some parts of the project might have benefited from further refinement through additional collaboration, tighter structural editing, and more detailed mixing and post-production work. In earlier eras, Kanye West's work was often associated with a highly collaborative studio environment, where multiple producers, engineers, and creative contributors would continuously shape and reshape the sound until it reached a highly cohesive final form. It is precisely at this point that comparisons to those earlier periods naturally arise. Listeners begin to measure the current output against previous standards of cohesion, sonic layering, and finishing detail that defined some of his most critically acclaimed projects. As a result, the discussion is less about the strength of the ideas themselves and more about how fully those ideas are being realized in their final, polished form. Vocally and lyrically, the discussion continues along a similar line, with attention increasingly focused on delivery style, vocal processing, and writing structure. In recent work, there is a noticeable shift toward more heavily auto-tuned and experimental vocal approaches, where the voice itself becomes part of the texture rather than a purely direct medium of lyrical expression. This stylistic choice creates a more atmospheric and fragmented vocal presence, which some listeners interpret as innovative and expressive, while others feel it reduces clarity and emotional immediacy. From a lyrical standpoint, a portion of the audience has raised concerns that the writing does not always carry the same level of density, sharpness, or layered meaning that defined Kanye West's earlier catalog. In his most critically acclaimed eras, lyrics were often tightly constructed, filled with cultural references, wordplay, and structured thematic development that contributed significantly to the impact of each project. In comparison, newer material is sometimes perceived as more spontaneous or minimal in its lyrical construction, placing greater emphasis on mood, repetition, and sonic delivery rather than complex lyrical architecture. Historically, Kanye West has also been widely recognized for thriving in highly collaborative creative environments. Across multiple phases of his career, his process has involved close interaction with writers, producers, and engineers who actively contributed to shaping, refining, and challenging his ideas in real time. This collaborative pressure is often cited as a key factor in the development of his most influential and critically celebrated albums, where multiple creative voices work together to push concepts beyond their initial form. Because of that history, many listeners draw a connection between the level of collaborative input and the perceived sharpness of the final product. The ongoing discussion is therefore not only about vocal style or lyrical direction, but also about how the creative process itself influences the final artistic outcome. Still, despite the criticism, it is important to step back and recognize the scale of Kanye West's legacy in modern music history. Regardless of how individual projects are received, his overall catalog has played a foundational role in reshaping the sound, structure, and cultural direction of hip-hop and mainstream music over the past 2 decades. From his early breakthrough era onward, Kanye consistently pushed production boundaries, helping to redefine what a hip-hop album could sound like, both sonically and conceptually. His influence extends far beyond commercial success, shaping production trends, encouraging genre experimentation, and opening the door for more emotionally expressive and sonically ambitious approaches within mainstream rap and pop. Even when his more recent work divides opinion, it continues to attract intense discussion, analysis, and emotional reaction from audiences, critics, and fellow artists alike. That level of sustained engagement is, in itself, a clear indicator of cultural impact. Very few artists maintain this degree of attention across multiple eras of their career, especially while evolving their sound so dramatically over time. Ultimately, whether viewed through praise or criticism, Kanye West's work consistently generates conversation at a global scale. And in the music industry, that ability to continuously provoke reaction, inspire debate, and influence creative direction remains one of the strongest measures of lasting artistic significance. Ultimately, the project occupies a kind of middle ground for many listeners, where it resists being placed into any extreme category. It is not widely regarded as a defining classic in the same way as his most celebrated releases, yet it is also far from being dismissed or written off entirely. Instead, it exists in a more complex space, one shaped by contrast, where strong creative ideas coexist with moments of inconsistency in execution. Within that balance, the project is often described as a collection of ambitious concepts, unevenly realized, but still punctuated by flashes of genuine creative brilliance. There are sections where the artistic intent feels clear and powerful, even if the final form does not always fully refine or unify those ideas into a consistently cohesive whole. And for an artist like Kanye West, even work that is considered mid-tier by comparison to his peak output still tends to carry a level of cultural weight and influence that exceeds what most artists achieve at their highest point. His projects, regardless of critical consensus, almost always enter wider conversations about music, creativity, and cultural direction, ensuring that even his more divisive releases remain significant within the broader landscape of modern music. At the end of the day, the conversation inevitably circles back to one central theme: collaboration and creative chemistry. Across his entire career, one of the most consistent patterns in discussions about Kanye West's music is the impact of the people surrounding him in the studio and how that environment shapes the final outcome. Many listeners believe that when Kanye is working within a tightly connected creative ecosystem, surrounded by collaborators who actively challenge his ideas, refine his concepts, and push him toward greater precision, the end result reaches an entirely different level of cohesion and impact. In those environments, raw ideas are not left in their initial form. Instead, they are constantly shaped, edited, layered, and rebuilt until they become fully realized artistic statements. This perspective is often reinforced by comparisons between different phases of his discography, where some of his most critically acclaimed projects are associated with highly collaborative teams and intensive studio processes. In those periods, the combination of multiple creative voices working toward a shared vision is seen as a key factor in achieving both sonic depth and structural balance. As a result, the discussion extends beyond the music itself and into the broader ecosystem behind it: the production teams, the engineering decisions, the writing contributions, and the creative feedback loops that exist behind the scenes. For many, this behind-the-scenes structure is just as important as the artist at the center, because it directly influences how fully a vision is translated into its final form. That is why the debate continues so persistently. It is not only about individual songs or albums, but about the larger question of how creative environments shape artistic output, and how different levels of collaboration can fundamentally change the way that vision is ultimately heard by the world. If you're enjoying this breakdown of Kanye's music, production, and behind-the-scenes creative process, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because we break down stories like this in detail, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next.